All right. Hello, everyone. Can everyone hear me? Just a little thumbs up would be great if you can hear me. Brilliant. Thank you all so much for coming to today's non-school leaver webinar. It's great to have you all here. So firstly, to begin, welcome. My name is Kenny and I'm a second year medical science student at UTS. And today we'll be talking about admission schemes and just generally what UTS is like overall. But first, I'd like to acknowledge the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, on which our campus stands today. And I'd like to pay respects to the elders past, present, and emerging, and acknowledge them as the traditional custodians of the land. Now, just for a disclaimer, today's session will be recorded. And so we will ask that you keep your cameras off and stay unmuted. Please keep all questions towards the end after the panel session. But as of now, coming to the recording, coming to the session, you have considered that the recording will be posted on for public uses as well. So for today's agenda, we're starting at 5 p.m. and we'll be ending at 7:30. We'll have Alison, one of our panelists, talking about admissions. And then after that, we'll have a one-on-one chat sessions with our panelists. And then at 7:30, we will be concluding the event. So to introduce our panelists today, as I said, my name is Kenny and I'm studying a Bachelor of Medical Science. And next up, we have Hannah. Hannah, say hi, please.
Hi, everyone.
She's studying a Bachelor of Midwifery. And then we have Georgie. Say hi, Georgie.
Hi.
Yep, and she's studying a Bachelor of Business and a Bachelor of Law. And finally, we also have Alison. Alison, say hi.
Hi.
Brilliant. And so she'll be running through us about admission schemes later on. So why UTS? Well, UTS is very future focused and we really show that throughout courses. Our courses are both practical and innovative, and innovation is at the heart of UTS. Our courses are constantly redesigned and reevaluated to meet with our industry demands and to really reflect the changing work environment as well. And practicality as well, we've really pride ourselves on the practical approach with our education, with 85% of our students actually undertaking some form of internship or working on a capstone project at some point during their degree. This means that we'll give, you have an opportunity to put what you've learned in your classes with the real world industry partners. So as you can see here, we are the #1 young university in Australia. And that just means that we are the #1 university that is under 50 years old. We have 160 clubs and societies here. And yes, we do have 5-star rankings in several categories, employability and innovation just being 2 of them. We are also 5th in Australia for graduate outcomes, with 92.5% of our students employed full-time within 3 years after graduation. And as I said, 85% of our students will undertake internship or similar experiences as a part of their degree. And we understand that academics isn't everything with you. So we really want to encourage you guys to harness your passions and see what you guys really like to do. So you can join a club or society. We have over 160 clubs that range from academic, personal development, and sporting. And honestly, it is great fun. You should definitely join them. If you want to learn a language, go for it. We have plenty of exchange programs as well, whether you study a Bachelor of International Studies, or you can even travel overseas through our Global Short and Global Build programs. You can go overseas for as little as 2 weeks to up to a whole year. And if for you entrepreneurs and champions of industry out there, we do have the UTS Build Startup Program. In this, we encourage you guys to harness your entrepreneurial skills, and we mentor you. We give you partnerships with our industry partners and really try to enhance your business skills. And again, you can also apply your leadership in any one of these different aspects as well. And for those of you guys who are living quite far away from us, we do have on-campus accommodation, so you can really enjoy the university life. Yes, we are in the heart of the city, and a great thing about us is that we are not only in the heart of the city, but in the heart of the creative industry of Sydney, with 70% of the Sydney's creative industries in and around of our campuses. Great thing as well, we're only 10 minutes away from Central Station, we're only 10 minutes away from Darling Harbour, we're only 10 minutes away from Broadway. So there's no shortage of entertainment around here. And we do have academic support as well. If you do find it challenging getting back into work, getting back into studying, there are plenty of academic supports available at UTS, like UTS Help, UPass, Maths and Study, Science Study Centers. These will help you with essay writing, resume writing, getting used to the different courses. We do have personal tutors as well, available as well. And so you won't feel like you're being at any sort of disadvantages. We have a range of courses here at UTS, ranging from business, communications, all the way down to science and transdisciplinary innovation, which is one of our newest schools here. We'll talk more about that later if you guys are interested. Now, for those of you guys coming in, so what is a non-recent school leaver? So a non-recent school leaver is anyone who has not completed year 12 in 2021. So if you've completed your schooling back in 2019 or earlier, then you'll be considered a non-recent school leaver. And if you've done further study as well, then you'll be considered a non-recent school leaver. So I think I'll hand it over to Alison right now to talk about admissions. Alison, would you like to take over?
Great, thank you so much. Okay, so good evening, everyone. Thank you for attending our session. So I'll start talking a bit about the admissions process when you apply to any of the undergraduate courses at UTS. So first things first, Kenny's already mentioned that you would all need to be non-recent school leavers for this to be applicable, all these to be more suited for you. So at UTS, we consider the following studies for entry into all of our undergraduate courses. So that would, as you can see here, that would be a completed Australian U12 or equivalent, studies from other Australian institutions, whether incomplete or complete, but I'll talk more about that later. All tertiary preparation certificates and foundation studies courses, any TAFE and private provider studies, the STAT, which is the special tertiary admissions test. Just a note that we do only consider the multiple choice version. So typically all UTS courses will consider eligibility if you have completed a full year of full-time studies at an institution. Just a note that this does need to be in the same course and in the same institution. There are a number of courses that will consider less than 1 year of studies. So you can find out more information on the UTS website via the link uts.edu.au/admissions. So there'll be a lot more information on all the schemes and pathways available. So you can have a look at that later. Yeah. So how to apply? So you may be aware that in order to apply to any of the UTS undergraduate courses, you would need to lodge your application through UAC, which is the University's Admission Centre. So you'll be considered based on any accessible qualifications that you've done. So remember to submit all qualifications wherever you have commenced any kind of studies. So please also note that some courses also have special entry requirements, such as teacher education. Applications actually are currently open for spring 2021 and summer 2021. So that's this year's intake. And we also already have courses open for autumn 2022 next year. So you can check out courses. There should be 156 of our courses available online already. Step 2, you would manage your preferences through UAC as well. So in your UAC application, you can list up to 5 course preferences. You can change your preferences at any time up until a few days before each offer round. You can also view the offer round dates on the UAC website, but I'll go into the important dates for the upcoming ones in a later slide. So I've also got some quick advice for ordering your preferences. Pretty much, you should always place the course you want to study the most as your first preference, then work your way down until you've filled all your maximum number of preferences, or you have preferenced all the courses that you're interested in. You do need a minimum of 1 course to put in an application. We don't recommend ordering your preferences based on how competitive you think you'll be. So you should always just really consider what you actually want to do. During the selection process, you'll be considered for each course, starting from your first preference and then working down to your last preference. And then you'll be made an offer to the first course on your list, which you meet the entry requirements. So step 3, you can boost your application through our admission schemes. At UTS, we do have a variety of admission schemes on offer. So there's schemes which will take into account whether you've experienced long-term disadvantage, whether this has impacted your studies. There's which is called inputs. We also have our Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander students, which can consider the Jumbunna Pathways program. Step 4, offers release. So offers are released progressively throughout the year. We're currently making offers for courses with a spring intake. Early offers for autumn 2022 will likely be made in late October. So step 5, accept your offer. If you're eligible for an offer to UTS, you'll be contacted by email with information to help walk you through the steps to accept your offer and start enrolling. Great. So I'll give you a little bit of a summary on the admission schemes that we have on offer. So we have a variety of merit-based schemes on offer. So just going through the slides, there's the Design and Architecture Portfolio Scheme. So this is where you can submit an optional portfolio through the UTS website. If you're selected, you'll be asked to attend an interview, and if you're successful in an interview, then you would be made a non-competitive offer. We also have the Business Cadetship Scheme, where you are awarded for attending a cadetship prior to commencement of your UTS business degree. For this scheme, you also apply directly to UTS Business School through the website. If you have any work experience at all, you may be eligible for up to 5 adjustment points if your work experience relates to the course. All you need to do is complete employment question in UAC. This, if you're interested and preferencing courses in business, engineering, IT, and science, please remember to complete this if you have work experience. We also have the Elite Athletes and Performers Scheme, which awards you 5 adjustment points if you have competed or performed at a national level. So to apply for this, you would apply to UTS via the website, and you would also need to put in the UAC applications to be considered. We also have, as an alternate admission scheme, the Science Aptitude Assessment. So this is if you missed the selection rank requirement for any of the science courses at UTS. It does assess analytical and critical thinking skills. There's no need to study for it, and it's offered up to 3 times a year. One of the things is that you can only apply once per calendar year. So that's the merit-based schemes that we have available for non-recent school leavers. In terms of equity-based schemes, we have the Educational Access Scheme, which is at UTS is called Inputs. So if you're eligible for inputs, then you are awarded 10 adjustment points, and it is for students who have experienced a disadvantageous situation during year 11 and or year 12, or through any of your studies, which is then assessed by UAC. In order to be eligible for entry into UTS, though, you do need a minimum of ATAR or qualification rank of 69 or a rank of 80 for law. So similarly, you also need to apply through UAC, as UAC are the ones that do the assessment of the Educational Access Scheme. And last but not least, we do have also the Women in STEM. So that would be for female students applying for selected engineering, IT, or construction project management courses. You will automatically receive 10 adjustment points towards your selection rank. Great. In terms of admission pathways, so this is if you are trying to get into a course and you may fall short of the selection rank requirement just by a little bit or by more than that. So these are some pathways that you can consider before applying again in a later session. So one of the ones would be enrolling in a similar course with a lower selection rank and then reapplying to UTS after a year. So what you would do is you'd use subjects to a degree with a lower selection rank, and then you would study and do your best in that area or that course. So where you have competitive marks in a similar course, you'll be considered in your application the following year. You can also complete a UTS college diploma, where you can fast track yourself into the second years of studies into your chosen UTS degree by completing a diploma at UTS college. Another thing that you can do is that you can reply after 1 year from uni, TAFE, or a private college. So you would need to study a diploma or a different degree, then apply to transfer to UTS after 1 full-time year of study. So a note that this also includes the tertiary preparation certificate. You may also be eligible for recognition of prior learning. Another pathway that we have is, as I mentioned before, the Jumbunna Uni Start program. So this is for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander students. You can complete faculty-based elective subjects and foundation subjects, which will form a part of your degree and your program of study. Yep, so I'll talk a bit about recognition of prior learning, as I'd imagine that a number of you may have started or commenced studies in another institution. So recognition of prior learning is when you would get RPL for subjects you may have completed. So the first thing you need to do is research the subject content through the UTS handbook, the faculty website, and the recognition of prior learning tool. Then you would compare UTS subjects and learning outcomes with the studies from your previous institution. So this is usually at the subject level, so you would need to collate all of your subject outlines from those subjects you've completed. Then you would complete the recognition of prior learning application form, then attach all certified academic records, which would be your transcripts and qualifications, along with any other documents to support your application. So this would be then submitted through at the UTS Student Center as soon as you accept your offer. This means that if you're eligible for any RPL, then you wouldn't need to complete those subjects again. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alison. Now we'll be moving on to the student experience, and we'll be having a chat with our panelists available. May I please ask everyone to leave your questions at the end? Don't worry, there'll be plenty of opportunities at the very end to answer your questions. So hold off on questions for now. Anyways, let's get going. So first question, I'm sure everyone wants to know why we chose to study at UTS. So Hannah, could you start us off? Why did you choose to study at UTS?
Yeah, so when I was considering what I want to study, where I wanted to study, obviously like most Year 12 students, I was actually going to a lot of open days. When I went to the UTS open day, it was really clear that UTS had a lot of practical support and student support, so they actually really wanted students there. And when I was trying to think of what I want to do, and I was considering midwifery, I wasn't too sure on it, but UTS was number one in number one in Australia for nursing and midwifery, and number 7 in the world, correct me if I'm wrong. And that was obviously a really big selling point. And it was also one of the only unis in Australia that offered it. So it's nice and close to home, offered midwifery, number 1 in Australia. And when I did the tours, the labs are really great. So that was a really big selling point for me. So I decided from then that I wanted to do midwifery at UTS.
Wow, that's amazing. How about you, Georgie?
Yeah, so quite interesting. So I completed Year 12 in 2015, and I actually didn't even attend a UTS open day because I kind of had a preconceived idea of where I wanted to go and what I wanted to do. And I actually spent my first year at a different university studying a Bachelor of Commerce. And after a year, I decided that it really wasn't for me. And then over that I spent 3 months working with a team full of UTS students, and essentially over that 3-month period, they kind of wore me down, and they spoke a lot about their experiences at UTS and how good the culture was and how inclusive and fun, but also academically rigorous, which was really exciting for me. And they also had a really big focus on entrepreneurship and innovation. And as someone who studies business and law, that was really important to me. And also just the opportunity to travel overseas through the course of my degrees is super important. And also UTS had a lot of financial help available to do that, which was very exciting. So that's why I...
Thank you, but yeah, you cut it out at the very end, but thank you so much. So much like you, Georgie, I actually didn't come to any of the UTS open days. I too had a preconceived notion of which university I wanted to go to before that. So for myself, I was actually studying a Bachelor of Criminology and Criminal Justice, and I spent 2 years there, well, nearly 2.5 years, at another institution before coming to UTS. And I think some of the things that really drawn me to UTS was their labs, because I really wanted to look at their science courses and look at their facilities. And I was just fascinated by the super labs at UTS, and with our new Hive super lab as well in building 2. It's just amazing. You know, we can house over 270 students in one go with 7 classes running concurrently, all doing different sort of sciences. And it just builds up this atmosphere of, you know, wanting to study more and learning more and just being passionate about science. Yeah. Hannah, could you talk more about that? Just what's the environment like in the clinical simulation labs?
Yeah, well, funnily enough, I actually got to use the Super Lab last year in my pharmacology class, and I can confirm it is really wonderful. It's just this humongous lab, and you've got all these students from different classes. It can be a bit confusing when you're like, oh, do you know where this class is? And then someone's like, no, but yeah, it is a really great lab. Yeah, we also have a lot of clinical sim labs in Building 10 at ETS, and that's where we do the majority of nursing and midwifery learning. Those labs are really good because you have people like they're called sim men, and they're essentially people that simulate conditions that people can have. So it can show someone having high blood pressure, or going into cardiac arrest or such things. We also have baby sim people, so that's really great way to visualize the practical aspect of learning, especially with nursing and midwifery, where it's hard to know what to do on like you don't want to practice on a person for the first time, and so having that, those simulation labs are really helpful for that.
And Georgie, how did you find your experience with your cohort members? Was that something that drew you to coming to UTS?
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, like the number one reason to come to UTS is the culture, without a doubt. I think the people here, and maybe I'm just biased because I have a really good cohort with my business and law double degree, is everyone's just really lovely, really supportive, really encouraging, but also still quite academic and career focused, which is like a really good balance that is often difficult to strike, I think. So yeah, I've had such a good experience with my cohort.
Now, continuing on, Georgie, what sort of challenges did you face as a non-recent school leaver?
Yeah, absolutely. So I came from another Australian university. So for me, academics wasn't like necessarily an issue, because I know some people can struggle when you go from that year 12 into university environment. It can be a really big jump. But for me, the biggest concern was essentially making friends, because I went through that recognition of prior learning process, which Alison spoke about before. I kind of was in this weird, in the second year, but in the first year situation. So I really had to kind of find a way to meet people. And the best way to do that, I found, at least for me, was to join a bunch of different societies and clubs. They're always running events, even through COVID. When we were all quarantined, there were events online, but now we're kind of transitioning more back on campus, which is really great. So I joined the UTS Business Society. I also joined the Consulting Club, Women in Business, and the Law Society as well. There's just so many things going on. And then I also kind of was a bit more talkative in class, I think. I had a bit of a technique where I'd walk into a tutorial and I'd just find someone sitting by themselves who looked nice, and would just sit next to them and say hi, because a lot of the time people want friends as well. But yeah, that was kind of the biggest challenge for me.
I mean, for myself, I think coming into UTS, one of the challenges that I thought I'll be facing is sort of the age gap. I understand that, in your first year, you'll be surrounded by mostly 18-year-olds who have just recently come out of high school, and you didn't want to seem a little bit weird. Did you face any sort of challenges like that?
I mean, not necessarily. I think last week I had an event with some consulting club friends, and one of the girls who I was sitting next to, she was 19 and I'm 23. So it was a bit of a difference, but at the same time, like, I feel like age is kind of just a number. You're studying the same thing, so generally your interests are quite similar, or if they're not, there's still a discussion to be had there. So yeah, I didn't really faze me at all, to be honest.
Moving on. So Hannah, this question's for you. How did your pathway better prepare you for UTS? So give us a little backstory first.
Yeah, absolutely. So before I studied at UTS, I did my HSC, I did year 12, and then I did a certificate course called the Academic Studies and Theology Certificate. So that was a program called Year 13, and that was essentially like a gap year program, but it had some tertiary study elements to it. That really helped me. I really enjoyed that because it really helped me prepare for UTS. And it did that because it was an environment where I could study with people who weren't teenagers, who weren't high school students, and they were people who wanted to be there. And that's generally what you find in uni. You don't have high school students working with you, and you also are working with people who have chosen that course. And so that was a really great way to understand how to collaborate with adults in an academic way. And the other great thing was because it was a tertiary study program, it was self-directed. So that learning is very similar to how I was learning at UTS. So I find that, yeah, really helpful. Also, because I took a gap year, it was a really great way to take a break from the intensity of the HSC and give myself time to think about what I wanted to do and make sure that I actually wanted to do that and that I definitely wanted to study at UTS. And as you can see, I'm here, so.
Yeah, you're enjoying it. Brilliant. So for Georgie, back again. So I understand that you've done a lot at UTS. I've seen your resume. You're very active around UTS. Joined so many clubs, and just wanted to ask, how is UTS studies, whether it be extracurricular or whether it be your degree itself, how does that enhance your career?
Yeah, for sure. I feel like I could answer this question over like 2 hours, but I'll try and keep it super succinct. I think one of the first things that comes to my mind is the opportunity for international experiences. Hopefully there's a lot of people on this webinar tonight who are really interested in traveling overseas, hopefully if COVID kind of sorts itself out. So for me, I got the opportunity to go over to New York for 2 months and intern full-time there. So I was interning on Wall Street and living in Brooklyn, and it was just like an unbelievable experience. And ever since that opportunity kind of happened, every job interview I've been talking about it, because it really just shows a lot of independence, which you kind of don't really get that opportunity to show elsewhere. And I'm also about to start an internship with a Malaysian intellectual property law firm, which I'm super excited about. In an ideal world, I would be traveling over to Malaysia, but unfortunately that's not happening. So it's all virtual. So UTS has done a really great job of transitioning everything online, so you still get those opportunities. Following on from that, UTS Careers is a really awesome resource that we have at UTS. So they have kind of like drop-in sessions where you can show them resumes, cover letters, and they'll essentially go through it with a pen and like edit it. And so I've gone back to this poor lady maybe like 3 or 4 times when I was kind of going through that penultimate year internship application process. And she really helped me kind of nail that resume to really show myself off as best I can, which was really awesome. And then the final thing that I would say is that UTS has a really practical focus, which I really definitely noticed when I transferred from the other university that I was at. So a lot of your courses kind of revolve around developing like technical skills, which is really important. So my major's marketing and working with Qualtrics and Excel, necessary evils, I would say, but really important to develop those skills. And then also with my law degree, a lot of my assignments really focus on drafting work as if you're delivering it to a client, which is a very difficult skill to hone in on. So they really kind of get you to do that throughout the course of your degree, which is extremely helpful. So yeah.
Do you mind if you could talk more about the international opportunities? How did you get into that?
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. So with the New York internship, so that was organized through UTS Build, which I would really recommend everyone who's starting at UTS to look into. It's a really awesome program that they run, which is essentially all about developing your global mindset, about how to be a global citizen, things like cultural awareness, social justice. And so as part of that program, you do a series of workshops, and then you also have the opportunity to build elective points. And you can do that through international experiences, or if you want to stay in Australia, you can do kind of more domestic experiences as well, which is really awesome. And they have a huge database of opportunities for all different degrees, which is really awesome. So yeah.
Wow. It's fairly impressive. And so have you been able to keep in contact with the people from Brooklyn? Have you been able to network with them? You know, what not from a career perspective, but more on a social perspective? Did you?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the people I met in New York I actually saw last night, which is pretty funny. But also career-wise as well, I think that's another really important note, is developing like an international network, especially if you're someone who wants to work overseas at some point in your life. So my manager from when I was in New York, she was actually coming to Australia, and I was able to kind of hook some things up for her with UTS, funny enough. Yeah, and it's just really awesome seeing what's happening overseas and keeping those connections alive, and also just making those friends. Yeah, because you wouldn't normally meet them in your usual day-to-day life, I would say.
Definitely. Wow. That's really impressive. Oh, I haven't had a chance to go on like international studies yet, but yeah, because I'm participating in the build program as well. But you know, with COVID, it's definitely slowed down. But as you said, you know, UTS has done really, really well in terms of the transition from virtual to from real in person to virtual. So I'd like to just build up on this again. So Georgie, I'm going to start with you, and then afterwards I'm going to move on to perhaps I'll talk a little bit about my experiences here, but tell us a little bit about the extracurricular activities that you've participated in.
Absolutely. So as I kind of mentioned before, I got really involved in different societies as kind of a way to make friends and also to kind of figure out what I wanted to do with my life, to be quite honest with you guys. So that was the Business Society, Women in Business, Law, and the Consulting Club, which I really got heavily involved in. And through that society, I started competing in different case competitions, which is essentially when you're given a problem and you kind of have to solve it and then pitch it back to kind of judges. So I entered the Microsoft Protege case competition with a few friends last year, and we actually came second in Australia, which was super exciting. And so the laptop that I'm using right now is the one that Microsoft gave us as like a prize. So that might be a bit of incentive for anyone. So they're a lot of fun. Also did some social sport at uni. So started doing netball, which was a lot of fun. Good way to meet different people. Also learn a new skill if you haven't played any of those sports before. I also tried to go on exchange to the Netherlands, but that was last year. So unfortunately that got cancelled. But if you guys are looking to join UTS, that's definitely something that's available to you, hopefully in the future. And then the final thing is that I've done various internships through the course of my studies, and I've done quite a few for academic credit. So I was like, get two birds with one stone kind of thing. So yeah, that's been kind of over the summer periods, during winter, and over the actual session itself, which has been super exciting. So I got to intern with a legal tech startup, which was a lot of fun, an NGO, which was very interesting, and obviously about to start with this Malaysian firm, which I'm super excited about. So that's me.
So you met the Malaysian firm through the extracurricular activities that you were participating in?
Sorry, can you just repeat that? My internet's going a little bit.
Sorry. So you actually met the Malaysian firm through which program did you go through to meet them?
Yeah, absolutely. So within the law faculty, they run international legal internships, and they can help you kind of source different places to go through. So you can go through either the faculty or you can go through Build. So mine was again through Build because I just had a really awesome experience with them the first time. And so they kind of hooked me up with all these different opportunities. And I decided that the Malaysian legal system was one that really interested me, and particularly intellectual property. So that's why I went down that path.
Wow. So I think we can all see that, you know, joining societies is a great way to enhance your career aspects as well. Myself, I'm part of the UTS Medical and Health Society. We do a lot of workshops for GAMSAT related events. So if you're thinking about coming to UTS, studying medical science and possibly developing your medical science knowledge and going into medicine later on or doing research, then definitely joining one of the clubs is really, really important. Being part of the society, you actually get a lot of opportunities to network as well. So with these workshop events as well, one of our more recent workshops that's actually happening tonight. Unfortunately, I couldn't participate, but one of the recent workshops that we're running today is actually a med career workshop. Essentially, where networking, we're engaging with doctors and students who are in medical school, and you get to ask questions, you get to see what sort of lifestyle they have, pretty much essentially like this, except relating to med. And so joining a society, it is student run. So you can expect that it is very, very down to earth. You know, everyone there has the same sort of passion as you. Everyone there has the same sort of issues. And we're all in a society to, I guess, enhance our own careers. Would you agree to that, Georgie?
I'm so sorry, you completely cut out. Sorry, Nanny.
Oh, sorry, you cut out just then. But yes, definitely, if coming to UTS, academics really isn't everything. Myself personally, I joined 5 societies in the first year. I really wanted to get out there and make new friends. And I joined Japanese, I joined OzTag, joined MedSoc. What else did I join? I think I joined Dance Society and Music Society as well. It was a great experience meeting people from all diverse backgrounds, and they all had different hobbies as well. So there is really no shortage of extracurricular and societies at UTS. So moving on now, Hannah, can you just give us some tips about balancing student work-life commitments?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like I'm particularly qualified to talk about this just because midwifery is a very intense course where you're doing 4 days a week at uni, and then on top of that, you're doing placements. I have 2 main bits of advice for balancing study, work, and life commitments. And I don't think people are going to like my first one, but setting aside time, starting your assignments early is one of my biggest ones. As soon as your lecturer or your tutor gives you that rundown of what the assignment actually is and how you're going to do it, start it then. Because when that assignment creeps up on you and it's the week that it's due and your car breaks down and you know you're suddenly sick and you need to go to hospital, things like that, you never know when those sorts of things are going to happen. And so if you have that assignment done and ready earlier, you can not stress about it, and you can use that week when it's due to just relax and have fun, do the things you like. And the other tip I have is setting aside time to do the things that you enjoy. So if you devote time to doing the life commitments that you enjoy, say if you really like running, making sure that you're always going to go on a run 4 p.m. each day, or if you like sports or want to do an art class, make sure that you do that every Friday evening. Things like that. If you devote time to that, then let uni work around that, as opposed to working around doing your uni work.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Definitely, I agree. I definitely agree to that. How about you? How do you manage your time? And what sort of tips can you offer?
This has been a constant struggle for me over the past 5 years. I think for me, the first thing that I would say is make sure you kind of know yourself and what you can manage. For me personally, I like to work a lot, but as a result, full-time study can be a bit difficult. So I think accumulatively, I've spent about 3 years doing 3 subjects per semester, and then doing study over the summer period to kind of keep myself on track with my cohort, which is a really good way to do it, and something that I've actually really enjoyed. Summer school is, it sounds a bit boring, but it's actually a really good way to learn. I feel like it's a lot more positive in the summertime, everyone's just a bit happier. But then following on from that, and this is a bit nerdy, but I really love Google Calendar to organize my life and keep myself structured and accountable, putting in all my assignment dates, etc. and so forth when I'm working, when I'm seeing friends. And it's just like a very visual way to see what your week ahead looks like. So that would be the other thing that I would recommend.
I can't agree more. I think time management is very, very important. And myself, I don't use Google Calendar, but I do have a physical calendar, the UTS diary. This is pretty much what I live by. I plan out my day, I plan out my week. At times I would even, when the semester starts, I think one of the biggest help for me has been planning out my entire semester and seeing what my schedule is like. And I think I really wanted to go back to the point what Hannah said about you shouldn't let work. You shouldn't let uni control your time. Am I saying that right?
Absolutely.
You shouldn't be, you know, switching up your time for university. You definitely want to be able to focus on yourself. You know, university is just another aspect of your life, and that's what you should really focus on. You got to think about the bigger picture.
Yeah, and you want to like, you don't want these 3 years just to be 3 years, or like however long your course is, to be like just a step to where you want to be. You want to actually enjoy that time that you're at uni.
Definitely, yeah. You know, you can't lose sight of what you want to get to, but you know, you got to enjoy the process. And I think I have a question for both of you. Do you think is it possible to work as well as study?
Yes.
Absolutely.
We're doing that at the moment, so I feel like yes, it is.
It is.
I feel like most people are in that situation where they're working and studying, in whatever capacity it may be, without a doubt, doable. Yeah.
Yeah, and I moved out of my parents' house, and so I sort of have to work to, you know, pay rent and do, you know, eat food. But yeah, it's definitely possible. Like even, you know, if your uni is at 9 to 12, you can, you know, work casual from 1 to 3, or, you know, just find time around that to do that.
I actually had a question, Georgie. You said you were only doing 3 courses for a semester. Are you still considered a full-time student then?
Yeah, you sure are. So I think it's 18 credit points and you're still full-time. So I did look into that because I wanted to make sure I still kept my concession Opal card because I didn't want to pay adult rates. But yeah, you are still full-time.
Yeah. And so that's one of the ways that you've been able to manage, you know, studying, doing extracurricular activities and working all at the same time. Correct?
Yeah, absolutely. If I was doing 4 subjects, I don't think I would have made it. I think I genuinely would have burnt out. And also you just wouldn't be able to like do your best in the subjects or work or an internship or whatever it is that you're pursuing at that time.
So Alison, this is actually a question for you. Would a year of study at another institution be counted at UTS, or would a student have to start from the beginning?
Most definitely. All of the studies completed from another institution would count towards assessing your actual eligibility to get into any of the courses at UTS. So what happens is when you put in your application, you would also put in, well, either your transcripts or you submit information on what courses you've commenced. Then UAC will assess your studies completed based on the results you achieved during your studies. UTS will then consider all studies completed and you'll be assessed for eligibility based on your best rank. If you have been completing a similar course at another institution, you can also apply for recognition of prior learning, which I touched on earlier, and that would be once you accept your offer into a course. If you are eligible for any subjects completed, then the relevant subjects will be credited into your study plan, so then you won't need to redo the same subjects. So most definitely, you don't have to start from scratch.
And sorry, just to confirm, the recognition of prior learning, is it done through UAC or directly to the university?
It's done directly with UTS.
Directly to UTS.
Yes.
Okay. Yep. Could you also explain what the STAT test is?
Yep. So the STAT test I touched on earlier as well. So it's one of the pathways into UTS. So many courses at UTS will consider the STAT test, which is the multiple choice version. It's administered by ASA, the Australian Council for Educational Research. One of the conditions is that you have to be 20 years of age by the 1st of March for the year of admission. So that for this year, you need to have been 20 by the 1st of March this year. And your STAT results also need to have been obtained within the last 3 years prior to the year of admission. I guess one of the pros and cons would be, that looks like a slightly different question, but cons would be if you don't meet those eligibility requirements, but pros are if you don't, if the results that you've attained from your other qualifications don't quite meet the requirements, then that is an alternate pathway for you to consider.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So how does a diploma or STAT test year of study, year of uni, compare to those students who are applying with their ATAR?
So what generally happens when you submit your different qualifications to UAC, all of the qualifications or studies that you have commenced are converted into a qualification rank by UAC for assessment. So regardless of whether it's a diploma or a STAT test or a year of uni at another institution, they will all be converted to different ranks. So if let's say you've done your HSC, you've done a year of studies, you've done half a year of studies at another institution, and you've also done the stat test, although I don't think anyone really does all of those. Any one that you've done and submitted and declared your studies, they would could be converted into an individual rank. So at the end of the day, once UAC has done all the assessment, then you'll be considered for entry into the UTS course based on your most competitive, which is your best rank. So because of that reason, you should always declare all studies when you put in your UAC application, even if you didn't complete.
Excellent. Thank you. Well, that actually concludes our panelist event of this for this webinar. But we are opening up to having one-on-one live chats right now. I believe one of our staff members will have a link to. Sorry, one of our staff members will be submitting a link in the chat. So please go on to that, and then we'll get typing. So that's where we'll be answering all your questions.